Hi, so today I'm going to talk about how to make money with your car and specifically about how I make money with my own car. There's several different ways you can monetize your car. One method would be doing ride share like Uber or Lyft, but I have a two-door car. It's a little bit older and I don't have to worry about people riding in my car, so I don't do that. Another option would be things like food delivery, like pizza delivery, or even there's places that you can work with to go shopping at the grocery store, pick up people's groceries and deliver to their homes. Also, certain stores like GameStop and Walmart specifically are offering same-day delivery. So if you get on the website and you order some, merchandise from one of those stores and want same-day delivery, it's going to be like an independent contractor driver coming over to deliver the items to your house, not like FedEx or Amazon or anything like that. Okay, and then how do I do stuff with my own car? Courier work. So I usually haul medicines to people's homes or nursing homes, haul things between hospitals in the area, things like that. Okay, all right, so how do you find courier work if that's what you want to do? You can go online, do online searches for courier or deliveries in your town, see what pops up, and then if there's any companies, you can try to contact them. You could also try to contact pharmacies in your area if you have any large pharmacies in your city. And I'm not talking like a CVS or Walgreens, but more like a Omnicare things, pharmacies that will actually send medicine out to nursing homes and places like that. Another thing would be to check what's called a compounding pharmacy. There's pharmacies that do IV meds for people that will mix the medicine, and they will provide transportation to people's homes for the medicine. So you might be able to do something like that. You could also call HR at your local hospitals. Hospitals need to move things. If there's a hospital network where you are, they need to move supplies and samples back and forth among the different hospitals. So they definitely have a need for drivers as well. And then just other regular old, online job searches. I actually found my career gig off of a Craigslist ad. It was pretty straightforward. It said, make money with your car doing deliveries. And, I sent an email and a guy wrote back. And after a couple exchanges, I figured out that he was, a real guy locally that, wanted to interview me. So I went there and that's how I got on with the company I'm working with. So as far as driving for courier work, the first thing to figure out would be, are you going to be driving your own vehicle or are you going to be driving a company vehicle? Like the hospital thing that I mentioned a while ago, a hospital may have their own vehicles. So it's really going to be different for the way you're paid as far as if you're driving your own car or a company vehicle. So if you're driving a company vehicle, you're going to be more like just a regular W-2 employee, just like you would be at any other regular job. You're going to drive your own car to wherever you go to work, and then get in the company car and then go do deliveries in that, and you're just going to be paid, flat hourly wage for that. Okay. So if you do your own car, like I do for courier work, you're probably going to be an independent contractor. It's going to be considered a 1099 employee. That 1099 is the IRS code that's going to cover how you're paid and taxed and things like that. So if you're using your own car, you're more than likely independent contractor. So the company I work with, you just have to have a DBA name, which is doing business as. For us, it was real simple. Just went to the county courthouse, went into their records department, told them I needed to file a DBA name. I picked a name. They searched in the database to make sure there's not an identical name out there for that. And then once they said, okay, you're good to use that name, just basically filled out a form. I think it was real cheap. It was like $20 or something like that, like a one-time fee of $20. It was either 10 or 20. But paid that and got my DBA, and then that's what my company that I contract with wanted me to have in order to hire me on as a driver. Okay, so 1099 independent contractor, you're kind of your own boss. If you drove a company vehicle for a hospital, did deliveries for them, you're on the clock, you're getting paid hourly, and you basically have to do whatever they want you to do while you're on call or while you're at work. Now, if you're a 1099 employee, if the company you contract with calls you for, a delivery, if you're not available because you have family things going on, stuff like that, you just tell them, hey, I'm not available. You have to find someone else, and they'll move on to the next person. So you have the ability to, turn down different runs if you don't like them, if you don't want to go where they're trying to send you, if you know it's kind of low pay for what it is, things like that, you can just tell them no. Now, obviously, the more times you tell them no, then eventually they'll just, quit trying to call you and give you work and stuff. But you do have the ability to kind of control your schedule like that. Okay, so the company I work with specifically has a few different things set up for drivers as far as like different drives they can do, and kind of how they have their structure for pay and everything. One is they have on call for shifts. They will provide you a base pay. They're basically going to contract you for a certain amount of time, like 8 or 12-hour period of time. You're basically going to be working for them during that period of time. If dispatch happens to call while you're on call, you have to take the run because you're on call for that period of time. You don't really have the ability to tell them no for that. For our company, they give you, what I consider a pretty small amount of base pay, and then you're getting paid, by delivery, the number of deliveries you have and stuff like that. But, you don't really get to control how many, calls come in or anything like that, obviously. So, some of those people don't make a whole lot of money for the amount of time that they're on call. Another thing that they do is it's called stats, or some people would call it hot shot, but basically picking up at one location, delivering to another location. That's primarily what I do these days. The important thing to remember with that is you're only paid from point A to point B. So, the company bills the customer, and they, bill them for the amount of miles between the pickup location and the drop-off location. If you live 10, 20 miles away or something, that's on you to get there. So when you're figuring out if this is really worth it or not, as far as expenses go, you have to think about the total miles driven, the total amount of time, it takes to do these jobs, things like that. So another thing would be a route. Sometimes there's pharmacies that will deliver meds to several different nursing homes in an area. And so you may have a route where you go to several different homes. Same thing with hospitals, things like that. The thing with the route is, once you get your route assigned to you, and that's your route, maybe it's, Monday through Friday, maybe you have a weekend route, things like that. The important thing to realize with routes is it can change with little to no warning. This whole industry of like med delivery, especially from pharmacies, is pretty cutthroat. And so, nursing homes will have a contract agreement with a certain pharmacy for a period of time. And then when that contract ends, if there's another pharmacy that's offering them a better rate on their, meds and everything, then they're probably gonna go with them. So, I've had different routes, or different drivers I've known have had routes that, all of a sudden go away, and, they may not have, but, a few day notice that things are changing because, the pharmacy lost the contract with those nursing homes and things like that. So you kind of enjoy the times when they're good, and then you just have to, know that things can change pretty much without notice. So that part kind of sucks about that. Okay. All right. So some benefits to doing courier work. As far as meds, kind of fulfilling. I've delivered tons of medicines to both nursing homes and individual private residences. Obviously people need their medicine, helps extend their life and, quality of life with health and everything like that. So it makes you feel kind of good that you have a hand in, helping people, continue on with their lives and things. It gives you a way to monetize your car. Most of the time, people's cars are either their, most valuable asset, or if you own a home, car is probably your second most valuable asset. And it gives you a chance to make some money with it and actually, make money from the miles that you put on your vehicle. And it's kind of tax-free income. And I'm going to kind of go through that and explain that a little bit. But when you're a 1099 independent contractor, you can claim mileage deduction with the government. And oftentimes it ends up being where you pay very little taxes on that income you make throughout the year. Now, while that sounds really, really good that you don't have to pay a bunch of tax on the money you make, you got to look at the other side is, you're basically putting all these miles on your car and really wearing down your either primary or secondary, most valuable asset. So, there are pros and cons to everything. For instance, there was a driver at the company I contract with. had a brand new Ford Focus, and within 15 months, or I think it was close to that, he had about 150,000 miles on his car. And he went and traded that car in and got another new Ford Focus. So just think about the new car prices. He basically drove all the value off that car in the course of a year or a little over a year, and then went and bought another car. So, it's definitely not all, great sunshine and rainbows as far as like, all this money you make and stuff like that. You really have to think about how much wear and tear you're putting on your car, and, how much you're driving the value down off of that car. Okay, so if you're going to use your car for work like this, let's talk about how the IRS is going to treat this. Okay, so you can either choose an actual expense deduction or a mileage deduction. I'll explain this a little bit. I came across something as I was researching this where it was on TurboTax, and the article said it was reviewed by a CPA. Article said that if you want to use the mileage deduction, you must use that for the first year that you use your car for business. Now, what I did was I contacted our CPA before I started doing this and told him what I was going to start doing and asked him which would be most beneficial to us. And he said that in most cases, he felt that the mileage deduction came out, better tax-wise for people. So if you're going to use actual expenses, you're going to have to keep track of every single expense with the car. Some examples are lease payments, which if you have a lease, you probably don't have a whole lot of miles allowed per year. So trying to do what I do on a lease would be absolutely stupid. But anyhow, lease payments, insurance, gas, your licensing costs every year, you get your tag, all maintenance items, depreciation, things like that. Kind of a decent amount of work. Now, whereas if you claim the mileage deduction, you're just going to keep track of how many miles you drive over the course of the year, and then the IRS each year will release how many cents per mile you're allowed to claim for a deduction. And then you also get to count up to half of your food and drink expenses. So like me, I go ahead and save fuel receipts just so I could show that I did drive so much over the course of the year, but I'm not actually adding up those costs and deducting those because I do the mileage deduction. So what I've got is an app called TripLog, and you can get it for free, and the service is free per month. They also have subscriptions where you can get more reports and things like that, but the free version does everything I want it to do. It allows me to enter every single trip I put in there. I just do my starting mileage, ending mileage, and then it keeps track of that over the course of the months and then the year, and then it's going to calculate what the deduction is. So a real good free way of tracking that over the course of the year. And then I also just save the food and drink receipts, keep all those in one place at the end of the year. I just add all those up, and then our CPA puts that in as a deductible expense, and then we're able to claim 50% of the food and drink expenses. Okay, so for me, I've figured out the mileage deduction was more favorable for our situation. Okay. So we've talked about, kind of how to get into this, some different ways to make money with the car, some issues or kind of pros and cons as far as independent contractor versus a regular W-2 employee driving a company vehicle. So let me go over with you just the last few years of income expenses here so you can kind of see what I'm talking about with this thing I said earlier with basically tax-free money. Okay, for 2022, and I'm going from beginning of the year up through December 1st, so far I have made $32,811 this year. For business purposes, I've driven 60,364 miles. So I've basically made almost 33,000 and driven about 60,000 miles to achieve that. This year's a little bit weird in that the government in the middle of the year upped the mileage deduction rate. It was 58.5 cents per mile, and then they raised it to 62.5 cents per mile mid-year. So like I said, that's pretty rare. Usually it's just per year. Okay. So far, the mileage deduction alone for this year is going to be $36,600. And like I said, my income was just below $33,000. So I've actually got more deduction so far than I do income for the year, meaning that all the money I earned this year from driving will be tax free, and then that doesn't even count the 50% of the food and drink expenses, so I'll be able to add that as well. So essentially what that does is that means that net loss for tax purposes will be carried over to, or grouped in with our other income, and it actually lowers our adjusted gross income for the year because I've got a net loss from driving. Now, did I actually lose money driving this year? Of course not, because if I lost money driving, I would very quickly cease to be driving. So just on paper for tax purposes, it looks like I have a net loss for taxes. Actual gross profit for this year, breaking it down per mile, 54 cents a mile, 54.1 cents a mile. So that number is less than the deduction of 58.5 and 62.5. So that right there also shows you that I'm going to have a net loss for the year. Okay, last year I actually had really good income from last year. Last year my income was $85,465. I drove for business purposes 134,000 miles last year. The deduction for the IRS was 56 cents per mile. And so I ended up with actually a net profit last year of over $5,000. When you break it down per mile, I made almost 64 cents per mile with the car. Now, why was it so high last year? Well, I actually had a really good deal. I had a nursing home route where I delivered meds to 4 different nursing homes. And then a lot of times when I would do that same route, I would also be driving deliveries for another pharmacy to private individuals' homes. And so I ended up getting paid for both of those. So, you figure, the company is getting paid for 2 different contracts. And so I, as the driver, got paid for 2 different contracts, basically meaning that, I may have spent, a couple extra hours and maybe, some more miles on the road that night, but I was basically getting paid double what I would have if I had just been doing the nursing home route. So last year was a really, really good year financially, but it was kind of rare in that I had to pay tax on $5,000 of net profit last year. And then for 2020, I made $61,687. I also drove 134,000 miles in 2020. So same miles for 20 versus 21, but a lot less income. And so for 2020, the IRS rate was 57.5 cents per mile, and ended up filing a $21,000 net loss from driving, which once again carries over to other income I made through my other job as well as other income sources. So ended up, helping us out with lowering our adjustable gross income for the year. And then profit per mile for 2020 was 46 cents per mile. So that gives you at least a few years worth of numbers to see how it actually worked. Okay. Now, of course, you'd like to, do like I did in 2021, make a bunch of money. And I had to pay a little bit of tax on that, but once again, it was $85,000 income, and then only had to pay tax on $5,000 of that. But you have to have the work there. So, that just happened to work out where I had basically 2 contracts where I was making money from both of those. So, okay. So it may sound kind of like a lot of things when you talk about the tax, things for how you consider the deductions, either mileage versus actual expenses, and trying to get all set up with it. But I promise you it's not. Once you, find a place to work with, do whatever application. And then, like I said, I had to do the DBA and everything. But then it's really just keeping track of your mileage and your expenses and things. That's really not a big deal. So the app makes it so easy to take all that information for the year and be able to give it to whoever figures your taxes for you. So hopefully this, short video gives you a little bit of an idea of how I make money with the car, what I've been able to make with it. And, you can kind of determine if it's, right for you or not. Just consider, kind of mileage and your hours spent doing it, and then what you're going to be making from it as far as if it's actually worth it or not. So it's a little bit different because if you're just working a regular job, you're clocking in, clocking out, what your hourly pay is, you drive to and from work, how far that is, how much gas it takes to get there, things like that. And you can very easily determine if it's worth it or not. This is a little more convoluted, where you have to think about, the wear and tear you're putting on your car, the fuel economy of your car. For instance, I would recommend not even considering doing a job like this if you're getting less than about 25 miles to the gallon, for what that's worth. But, just it's a little bit harder to figure out if it's actually worth it or not. So, definitely make sure you look at, what it takes to, keep your car on the road, as well as how much, the gas cost is and everything like that. So hopefully that explains a little bit. And, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And then if there's anything else I need to add to this, I can always come back for another part later. So, all right. Thanks a lot. Have a good day.